Hey guys, I'm really excited about the podcast today. I've got a great guest on, is Dr. Robert Chuckrow. Robert started studying Tai Chi Chuan in the 1970s with the Master of Five Excellences, Cheng Man Ching, and continued on his training with William C.C. Chen and a host of other teachers and different things. He's a Tai Chi master who's written 6 books. Several of them have won independent book awards, and he's also a doctor of experimental physics. So we're going to dive in today on the physics of Qi, Qigong, Tai Chi. How can you prove that Qi exists? And how can we talk about it in sense of a Western scientific perspective? It's a really cool interview. Stay tuned, check it out. Don't forget to subscribe, hit like, share, and the notification bell. Welcome to the Transformations Podcast. Here, guests and I will share our transformative experiences and will explore how to find excellence in life. Dr. Robert Chuckrow, thank you so much for coming on to Transformations Podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And you know, every Monday we get together, part of Luke G's group, the Tai Chi teacher circles and the engaged Taoism discussions. And I've really appreciated getting to know about you and your background, experimental physicist, Tai Chi, Qigong, author, so many wonderful things. So you're pulling all this information together that's very interesting for me and insightful. And it seems like the group loves it too. And you said something last night that intrigued me. You said, I've really been thinking about this topic or this move or this concept. And then you said, and I spent about a year on it. And I thought, this is how somebody really comes to understand something, get inside something, and then master something, because you're not just repeating, oh, it's like this, maybe I'll twist my elbow, but you're really putting a lot of intense thought for a year into the full mechanics or energy and movement of something. Does that kind of detailed thought and analysis come from your background in physics, or were you always kind of an intellectual, curious person?
Well, I think I was born with a tremendous amount of persistence. Not necessarily patience, but persistence. Patience I learned later. But I would just, if there was something that I wanted to know or wanted to be able to do, I just wouldn't stop until I got it. And I remember my parents were very upset with that. They would say, "You don't know when to stop. You can't stop." And now I've tempered it so that it's more productive than it was when I was young. But physics also was it enforced that, because everything you learned, you had to do a bunch of problems, a whole slew of problems, and you had to be able to do them. If you couldn't do them, you had to keep going back to the basics and finding out where your misunderstanding was. And until you were able to master that particular problem, you knew you still had work to do. Mm-hmm. And doing that for so many years, I think, reinforced that or strengthened that ability, refined that ability of mine, with that tendency of mine. So physics was a big thing. Also fixing things. You know that this thing can be made to work. You have to understand, how does it work? You can't just fix it until you understand how it works, every single part. And then when you take it apart, you have to know how to get it back together. That took a long time before I was able to do that.
Yeah, I think of like very intricate watches where the pieces are layered on each other, and it's like the watch isn't working. You can't just start pulling stuff out.
Which I did until I was 13. Every watch I got, I had to take it apart. And those were not digital watches. Those were the watches with springs and everything, and I'd take them apart. I couldn't have a watch. It was only when I was 13 that I was able to have a watch that I could wear and not open up.
That's crazy. See, once you solved it, you didn't need to open the watch anymore. You're like, oh, I just wind it, we're good. I would think in your younger years, this obsession for figuring things out would be almost obsessive compulsive, because you wouldn't have the adult method of cutting out the compulsion so you can stick on one thing. Obsession is there. I'm all about being obsessive about my work and martial arts and interest in writing and reading. So, but I imagine that at a young age, that must have been a little bit hard to focus.
Yeah. Well, in those days, they just called it attitude problem.
Not ADD. He's got an attitude.
They didn't have the psychological names for these things. Anal retentive,
Right.
Attention deficit disorder, all those things. But if you think about it, all the people who've accomplished things, the bridges, the huge buildings, the inventions, were people who would stick with things for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And but most people can't do that.
Especially in books. I appreciated. I have several of your books. I read them. Really, really enjoy, especially the one with the Tai Chi concepts and experiments. We'll put those up on the screen and links in the show notes for people who are interested, and they should be interested. That you put a lot of thought into the writing, and I'm impressed. I mean, I've written a bunch of martial art books, and it's always so hard when you're describing a process or a technique or a movement. Right shoulder, it's tiring. But you found a way to really compress that to the fewest words, and I appreciate that about your writing. And what I also notice on your website, you have like, I don't know if this is the right term, but like entry level or beginners articles, and then you have more in-depth articles. And the entry level ones are just like right to the point. And then you go to like a similar article in the advanced section, and then the detail underneath that one sentence is a paragraph or two, and you have a very nice way of teaching or presenting that way.
Thank you. Well, something that Blaise Pascal said was impressed me a lot. He wrote a letter to a friend, and at the end of the letter he said, "I apologize for writing such a long letter, but I didn't have time to write a shorter one."
Right.
And when I read things or see things on the internet, so much wordage. It's just get to the point. Tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
And that's what I strive for. But by doing that, you develop yourself, because you really have to understand something, and also you learn, you improve in your writing because you're looking up words and trying to find the best synonym for the word that you came up with, which you know isn't the best word, and then you learn the etymology of the word, and you understand how that was used by famous people, famous writers, and then you've added that to your repertoire, which is so much fun to do. It's just so enjoyable to do. So that I started off when I was a kid. I didn't know how to read, even though every other kid in my class did. And my mother was in denial. I'd be in the subway train and there would be an ad for Coca-Cola, they'd show the bottle, and I'd say, "Oh, Ma, that Coca-Cola," and she'd say, "See, you can read."
You just know what it is.
I couldn't even read comic books.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a struggle to learn how to read and then write. Writing was very hard for me.
Is English your first language? Were you born here?
Yeah.
And is it because there was just a learning deficit, or you weren't in an environment that provided the nurturing for reading and writing?
It was because when I was dying to go to school when I was a kid. I wanted to go to school and learn how to read and write and all those things. But then when I saw what school was like, I shut down and went into my own world. From first grade to eighth grade.
Wow.
I was in my own world. It wasn't until I got to high school that I started to emerge from that. And it was hard because I kept going back.
Was this in the 50s when you were in those
40s?
grades?
Yeah, 40s to 50s,
wow.
yeah. 40s maybe, mostly.
And where did you grow up?
In Brooklyn.
in Brooklyn. So
Yeah.
yeah. I want to talk about Qigong and Tai Chi, specialties of yours, and with your physics background, very interesting discussions. And I'll just start with a super easy thing to get us warmed up is, is Qi real? And if so, what is its biological basis?
Whoa.
Not so easy.
Yeah, one sentence will cover that.
Yes.
Well, in traditional Chinese medicine, and Qi goes back probably who knows how many thousand years. Yeah. In traditional Chinese medicine, I think Qi has good foundation and it works. And people say, well, you have to believe in it. Well, it works on animals, so the animals don't believe in it. They don't even know the word. And you see videos of operations of a person under no anesthesia, but with just the needles, and they're all opened up and they're talking having conversation with the surgeons, and so it really works. And I've had acupuncture, and I know it does. You can feel it. You can feel it going to that organ sometimes. So there's no question that there is something. What it is not clear. But the Qi in Taiji, I think, is they use that word for everything. For something, if it's something they didn't understand, they just say the Qi does it. The Qi moves the body. The Qi moves through the 9 crooked channels of the pearl. Things like that. I think when you do these movements that you do feel the Qi and it is moving, but it's not doing the movement. I feel that's a wrong idea. And they didn't know about electricity. They didn't know a lot about the endocrine system and physiology. They probably knew a lot, but not what's known now. And even we didn't. It's very recent that we learned.
No microscopes back then. And
to me, I think the Qi is the result, not the cause.
Okay.
So I stay away in Taiji from talking about Qi. I might say I feel it, but I don't go beyond that. But certainly it has, in traditional Chinese medicine, it's a big part. It's the basis of traditional Chinese medicine and yin yang, etc., 5 elements. But it is the main thing in traditional Chinese medicine. But the other thing is that I feel that this is a primordial way of cells. As cells became multicelled organisms, there had to be a way of the cells intercommunicating. Now, of course, we have the endocrine system, which sends signals from one part of the body to another. We have the nervous system, but that didn't exist with the first multicelled animals, jellyfish, things like that. They don't have brains, they don't have muscles, but yet they seem to know things. You look at one-celled organisms that are swimming around, and they seem to have a consciousness, and they seem to be able to know certain things and change their minds about. So they seem to be sentient, even if they don't have muscles, they don't have a nervous system, and they can move and consume other organisms and stay away from prey. So there's there's a knowledge that cells have, individual cells have. This is my thinking, that gets picked up by other cells, and as the organisms evolve to be more and more multicelled, and that remained, and it's still there. And all of these trillion cells that are in our bodies are intercommunicating in some sort of way. They need to, because each one is dependent on the other. And so I see myself as a colony of cells, not just this thing that I call myself. And this colony of cells has tremendous knowledge, and it's being transmitted. And I feel that is connected to chi. So how do they do that? In physics, there are three types of force. One is electrical, another is electromagnetic, the other is gravitational, another one is nuclear. So gravity is very weak force. Nuclear force, I don't think, maybe it is, I don't know. But electrical, everything we see is electrical pretty much,
Right.
Other than gravity. So I think there must be an electrical aspect, and the acupuncture, we have a needle going in, which is metal. We have an electrolyte in the tissues of the body, and that causes a current. And then they even add to that. They put a tapping recurrent shock, small shock. If it's too, and you see the needle jumping, and that facilitates it. So there's evidently some sort of electrical thing, but it may be something beyond it, beyond anything known in physics. Some way of transmitting knowledge that we don't have any perception of at this point, but we all have it. We all have it. So we can know what another person is thinking, even if the person is in halfway around the world. I did a thing where I had two students in Australia that I was teaching on Zoom. I'm in the state of New York. And one of them said, everyone talks about Qi. I don't know what it even feels like. So I said, well, let's try something. I said, just put out your hand and I'll put out my hand. And I activated my Qi, which I feel I can do. I'm good at that. And they felt it. They felt it. And the same thing with somebody in Pennsylvania. Same thing. So that's not something that went from me halfway around the world. Which way did it go? Did it go straight through the center of the earth, or did it go one way or another way? I don't think it's something that we can even conceive of at this point. But there is communication. And I think those cells are communicating with each other, which gets shut off by our tensions and the lack of oxygen, the lack of nutrients, etc., and activated when we open up our bodies and do movement and have a state of mind that is conducive to those conditions.
There's a long tradition in the Indian literature of old gurus and swamis, healing through a distance without even a Zoom,
Yeah.
and also in the Chinese traditions, I'm sure in the Native American traditions, we have a kind of a way. And I think you're right about relaxation, because the more tense you are, the more focused you are, the more tunneled you are. It's like you've shut out all of the energy, the world, the potentials around you. And our whole lives are like that now, basically. Yeah.
And as Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because thinking it's impossible shuts it out.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you have to believe something is possible, whether it is or isn't, but at least be open to the possibility.
Do you think Qi, in your experience, I know people describe it as a wave, but I don't know if they mean it in the same way as particle versus wave. I think they mean like wave force or something like that.
Yeah, well, it may be transmitted through the body in the form of waves, and pretty much that's a very common, in physics, that's a common way of transmission.
Waves are, okay.
And, we think of a particle moving from one place to another, but when you get down to higher physics, you see that waves are a big part of that, or there's a duality of particle, what's called particle wave duality. You can, in some conditions it's one, and in other conditions it's another.
Mm-hmm.
So, see, people will say everything is vibration.
Right.
And somebody said that to me, and I said, well, what is vibration? They didn't even know. They couldn't even say what it is. I don't know if I don't think you can say anything is always everything.
Right.
I don't think you can ever say that. There's always something beyond, another way of looking at it, etc. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I get from time to time the feeling of the chi moving in along the meridians the way they say it does.
Hmm.
And so these guys didn't have television. They didn't have electricity to stay up late at night, and computers. They didn't have any of this stuff. Most of them didn't even know how to read or write. They were feeling a lot that we don't even, and aware of a lot that we can't even begin to do.
Yeah.
And I remember young Juing Ming, I went to a lecture of his, and somebody in the audience asked him a question. He asked for questions, and somebody said, you wrote a book on brainwashing, bone marrow, Qigong, and could you talk about that? And he said, I wrote that book because I didn't want the knowledge to get lost. He said, if you're going to feel that, you have to live on the top of a mountain and not,
Right.
So I don't know whether he was kidding or not, but that's the way some things are, we're so far removed from so much because of our societal influences.
I think that's why most Westerners have difficulty meditating. They can't close their mind down because of all the stimulation from the day, light, sound, Wi-Fi beaming down from space that you have no control over, you know, electro smog, thoughts, sounds, colors. There's no way to, it's so hard to shut that down without being in the mountain. So
Can I add to that? It's
please.
also what's coming in from other people.
Oh, yes.
So I can feel when I would give a test as a physics teacher, I give a test the night before, I could feel the anxiety of my students. Even though I'm retired on a Sunday night, I can feel that feeling about tomorrow's Monday, even though all days are the same once you're retired.
Right. You had written in one of your articles that highly skilled Tai Chi and Qigong teachers can, and I'm truncating, intentionally regulate their background nerve impulses to be much more intense than those of ordinary people. So I assume that's in a healing aspect of doing Qi healing of some kind with somebody else, or Qigong healing.
I'm not sure where was
Oh,
what was the context of that?
I wish I clipped the sentence and I wished I hadn't. But I guess the point I'm getting at, if I just come to one point, that highly skilled master of Qi of some
Oh, I
kind
see. Okay.
can intentionally regulate their background nerve impulses
Yeah.
to be different than someone else to affect it.
Well, now I know what you're
Okay.
referring to. Yes. Well, years ago, many years ago, I used to do healing only if I hurt somebody or it was somebody who I had a close relationship with. And they would ask me, how do you do that? They'd feel the chi and they'd say, how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, well, I just have the will to do it. I have the intention to do it, and it just is there. And then I realized that's not an answer.
Right.
That doesn't say anything. That you could say that about anything. How do you fix this? Oh, I just fix it. So I thought about it a lot and said to myself, what am I doing? And I realized I am sending nerve impulses. I could feel it. Because I know what electricity feels like, because I worked as an electronic technician. I even was nearly electrocuted. And I played with electricity when I was a kid. It's just amazed I'm still alive. And unbeknownst to my parents.
Right.
And so I know what electricity feels like. And that, I said to myself, what I'm doing is sending electricity and upping that electricity. And now I'm very convinced that that's what it is. That what I'm doing and what I'm feeling is my own electricity, my own neural electricity. Mm-hmm. But instead of sending it to the muscles to cause them to contract, which we're good at. We do that all the time without even knowing it. And, it's only recently that we even know that's going on. We can also send it to the tissues in our bodies, the water in the tissues in our bodies, and get something happening there that's very different. And what I think is that the Nei Jin, which is the expansive strength, is what I call it, comes from that. Mm-hmm. And of course, when you do that, you're activating the qi with that electricity. So you're feeling a lot of qi. And you're feeling both the electricity, and then after that, you're feeling the qi. So I understand why they say, well, the qi moves the body. But I substitute the word neural electricity.
Right.
But it's not moving it in the conventional way of muscles contracting, tendons pulling bones. It's a different thing, and that has to be cultivated. Mm-hmm. We can do it. We have the ability to do it, and we do, but we don't know we are. Breathing, I think, is that way too. A lot of things, opening sphincters, etc. You can open your throat to, breathe, to yawn, and that is that kind of thing. There's so many things in our bodies. I think I counted about a dozen things that I put in my most recent book of that nature that you can actually feel yourself doing, because it's a matter of recognition to be able to utilize that. And so eventually it becomes so much so, and I've never seen this or experienced it actually, but I've seen so many videos of this and heard about it, where these high-level people can go over to a person and put their finger on them, and suddenly that person gets a shock, like an electric eel. Mm-hmm. And so that has to be something along those lines.
Yeah. Rene Navarro, of course, from our group. He has a student named David Verdesi who lives in Russia. And David went to and became initiated into, he went and trained with the Magus of Java, a guy named John Chang, who you may have seen on YouTube, lighting things on fire, putting chopsticks through tables and stuff. And David, before John Chang died, David got to, I think, level 4 or something in his group. And David can mix Kan and Lee and make a shock at will anytime, like a hard, loud one. And he's gonna be coming on the podcast very soon. It's incredible. And just the footage of the hermits in Huashang lighting paper from afar with their finger. And
I've seen that video, yes.
And different things. It's just, you can't tell me it's fake. People say it's fake, just have never experienced it or been around enough of it to understand.
You can't. You have to have an open mind about it. That's the only thing you can have until you actually either are able to do it or have experienced it from somebody else.
Right. When I was studying Chinese medicine, I used to have a TCM practice in the 90s, and I would tell my patients the needle is like an antenna pulling in the signal. Right, like your radio channel, and it tunes the signal to the point that goes into the meridian that's got the body fluids and the electrolytes, and it stimulates the whole pathway. Same thing, and I just say qi is bioelectric energy. And when you're saying it's the nerve impulses, mitochondria, it's all this just energy and electricity, and it's all around us. And I think the breathing works because it helps you relax and take the tension out of the nerves, the tension out of the muscles, so that things can move freely. And when they're moving freely, you've done these practices, you're like these masters that we aspire to be. I think it's fascinating. I think that's why Qigong is mostly based on breathing. It's like breathing, and then your mind leads the qi, right? Or and then you're doing a movement in some way that's expanding or contracting one meridian and another to kind of pump this qi around. That's just my theory, but
the original Qigong was just doing meditation, and then when they learned the martial arts, And they saw how much more chi they got from the movement, and then they took those movements and turned them into basic qigong exercises.
Mm-hmm.
And NeiGong is another level, another level beyond that, which I think I never learned it from anybody specifically as NeiGong, but I think that's what I do at this point. The way I do what I call qigong, or what I teach is qigong, I feel it's really NeiGong. In other words, I'm moving based on the sending of that bioelectricity, and knowing the limits of it, and knowing the effects.
Mm-hmm. So Neijin you call expansive strength, right?
Yes.
And Neijin means internal strength,
Internal.
energy.
The character for Nei is the rivers, the streams going into a fenced-in area. In other words, entering inside. Once you start to go in, then you're inside. And Jin has three parts. It's one part is Li, which is just ordinary strength, which is was originally the tendons and the sinews that caused the movement. They understood that. But then there is also the carpenter's square below that, and those two would be Gong, which is skill or work. But the carpenter's square implies skill, training, precision. And then on the upper left, there is underground water, which means something mysterious. But the idea of water is something that I think is involved in the body, and they talk about water a lot. And Cheng Man Ching used to say, feel the air as though imagine the air to feel like water, have the resistance of water. Well, you're feeling the inside of your body. You can't be feeling anything outside.
Right.
Anything, you say, oh, I touched this, it's cold. Pick up this glass. Oh, this is cold. It's room temperature. It's room temperature. It's only that it drew the heat out of my hand and my hand got cold. So water is a big thing, but underground water, meaning you don't know unless you really have almost a telepathic skill. Geomancy, divining. So that Jin has a lot in it. Of course, they've now dumbed it down, I call it Chinese for dummies.
Right.
They've taken all the information out of it. And if you look it up in a dictionary, it's Jin and Li are the same, but they're not.
Right.
The original meaning was very different. Now, all martial arts have Jin. They all have that skill. But in the Nei Jin makes it something for the internal arts, the Taiji and the Bagua.
So the Neijin is like the water going into its vessel or its cavern.
Nei is, yes,
Right.
the true
fajin,
streams going into a field.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And fajin is the expression of that force, so it would be coming out. Is that correct?
Interesting, yeah. And the yin-yang aspect.
Right.
In
Right.
out. Yeah, yeah.
I had a Qigong master I apprenticed with for 12 years, and he would scold me for doing, if I wanted to do Tai Chi, I was studying the Wu style. And he say, why are you doing that? And I say, well, because I want to learn Tai Chi. And he's like, well, and I said, it'll make my Qigong better. He said, no, Tai Chi takes away from your Qigong. So if you want to do Qigong, because Tai Chi has so many movements and you have to remember them and get the postures right, that your mind is focusing on something when you need the mind to be single pointed on the Qi. So if you're worried about these other things, it's going to retard your Qigong practice. But jump forward 10 years, I think it would improve the practice, right? But he was right in the beginning when I was starting in high school that if I wanted to get Qigong and develop my Qi, and I needed to focus on that and not have my mind move 26, 107, 10. Oh, what's 108 now?
Yeah. And eventually it becomes NeiGong.
Right.
Because you are feeling everything that's going on. And then you have to get beyond all the choreography and thinking of what's coming next.
Right.
But then what's happening inside becomes direct experiencing, and that's what Krishnamurti called meditation. Meditation was direct experiencing. So you were almost in a meditative state, which is being in the moment.
Right.
When you're doing the Taiji, but it takes quite a while. But it would take people less time if things were taught a little bit more in a modern way, I think.
Right. This is a good segue to talking about your teacher from the 70s, Cheng Man Ching. And you made a comment the other night that Cheng Man Ching created your masters in Taiwan or China. When he came to the US, he was creating teachers more to help spread the art. And that's a distinction, right? And maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, the school, when I came in, of course, it had been going for a while, for a number of years. When I came in, the teaching was done mostly by senior students and then the next echelon of students. So you never knew who your teacher was going to be when you came to a class, which was great because you got different points of view, which was very confusing, but I regarded it as an opportunity for being exposed to a lot of different ideas and sorting it out and thinking about it and trying to understand what is the basis of what's going on. There was a big emphasis on holding postures, which I can understand for strengthening the legs and also for refining what that posture was like. So the students would come around, correct you. So, for example, you'd be in Waldorf, and one student would come over and make your hand go this way, and then the next, who were teaching. There were a number of people were teaching, and then another one would bring it back to where it was, and so I knew, I have to figure this stuff out for myself. But it was basically teaching how to teach. That's what it really was, and I think that when Professor Cheng came to the United States, he didn't come to teach Taiji, but he was induced to do it. When he saw the interest and the kind of people who were coming to the classes, who were seekers, real seekers, he realized he could fulfill his teacher's, Yang Cheng Fu, his wish to spread Taiji everywhere. And he said a number of times, America is the future of Taiji. And he talked about how he wanted to spread Taiji far and wide. He said these things and wrote them too. And so I feel that was extremely valuable because you see what it came to. Yeah. It's all over the world. I see where people come to my website or my YouTube videos from parts of the world you never expect. The only place that I don't see it is North Korea. It doesn't do Tai Chi in North Korea. But anyway, he really spread it everywhere. And his style is very popular now. But it's a teaching style. And then he died. And the problem is you can't continue to study with a person who's dead as efficiently as get a new teacher and then add that in or sort it out. And so I did that. I had, even while I was studying with Cheng Man Ching, I had other teachers.
William C.C. Chen is one of them?
William Chen at the same time, and then studying with Elaine Summers, who was teaching movement in a very different way, but it meshed beautifully with Taiji. And taking anybody I could study with, and studying meditation, healing, and spiritual teachings, and then got other teachers, Harvey I, with whom I studied many years, and Sam Chin had a tremendous effect on me, and then studying Bagua and other things. The way I see it is just doing what Cheng Man Ching taught at that time is a good start. And still the way I teach my beginners. But eventually they have to go beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that as much as it should be. So that's my role, to try to take it beyond what Cheng Man-Ching taught. And I feel that he approves. I really do.
Yeah.
And I have some evidence of that from some dreams that I've had
Nice. I
with him,
believe that. I
where he's
believe
come
it.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah. In the arts, all the arts that I've studied, and my friends who are super nerds for martial arts, we just dive in head first and we rummage through the books and the videos and the notes and meet other people and compare and exchange our experience and knowledge. And so Wolf Lowenthal titled his book "There Are No Secrets" about Cheng Man Ching, Tai Chi, and yet here we are spending our lifetimes trying to figure out what the heck the secrets are. And do you think that that's because either the Chinese didn't have the teachers, or Korean, Okinawan, whichever, didn't have the language or interest to teach Westerners enough that we're still trying to piece together the teachings, or that they're just not good teachers that way, and we're still trying to figure out all the secrets and the meaning of this and how to do that, because at some point your students should know it and my students should know it because we've done the work and the people before us did, but we're all trying to reinvent or rediscover, like martial archaeologists and internal archaeologists every generation. We can't seem to just be like, here it is and here's how you develop it.
I think there are a lot of reasons. One reason is that it was secret and it was taught to family members. So I saw that with one of my teachers whose infants were brought to class, and I saw how they were watching and absorbing. And then as they grew older and were there, they were already doing things with each other. These two kids, one was a girl and the other's a boy, and they were just enjoying it so much and doing stuff that was amazing because they were getting it, I don't know, telepathically originally. So I think when you start as a baby and you see adults doing stuff, a tremendous amount of learning, and you don't have the encumbrances. Right. And that's the way they started, and they didn't have to talk about a lot of things because they were already feeling it and being able to do it. And then it was secret, so outsiders were not taught the same way as insiders were. And now very few people are become insiders with a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
and then cultural differences. If somebody is Chinese and they come to America, they may not be wanting to give out. But even if they may not even give it to people in China, but coming here, they may be even less apt to do so. Because originally this stuff was dangerous, and it could be used against them if they taught the student too much too early. So outsiders were not taught the same way. And then the language was not very precise. And so words we used in a different way. And so for us, we hear something and we take it literally, but it wasn't meant that way. So they say a hand is not a hand, or they say it's sung but it's not sung, or it's extended but it's not extended. And you have to understand that. Or if the opponent doesn't move, I don't move. But if the opponent moves, I move first. That's a contradiction.
Right. Right.
And I know my opponent, but my opponent doesn't know me. What does all that mean? Well, it wasn't there to figure out. It was there to remind students that these are the things that they have to be able to do. And they knew what that meant. But now we look at it and we say, what the hell is this?
I think
Doesn't
that's
make any
why
sense.
there's a whole large group of people who think traditional martial arts don't work, because if they're looking for fast self-defense or fast competition, combat sport or fighting, they're not going to get it from the real traditional arts, where, like we're talking about, those who are interested and really want it, it's a lifetime of learning and practice and unfolding and discovering and archaeology. And most of the people who I find that are interested in that path aren't looking to learn how to fight real fast, because their fighting isn't the main thing. It's evolving as a human being. It's learning, discovering about yourself, your true nature through these arts, you know.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, how many people do you know who've been mugged or killed
Right.
from another person? I don't know anybody.
Right.
Maybe somebody who's been mugged but never, not even hurt.
Right.
But I know a lot of people who have been in car accidents and died or seriously injured. I know a lot of people who have fallen. I know a lot of people who are eating wrong. A lot of people who are thinking wrong. And this is the antidote, in my opinion, if you really take it seriously.
And I think it's a worthy study, and it's a worthy indulgence, because it provides more self-knowledge and understanding than only watching sports or movies all day or weekends, or, you know, you actually have something to look forward to and dig into, and keeps your mind sharp, your body in good health. I mean, you look terrific for 24. I mean, my goodness.
24.
I know. I think you're in your late 80s.
Yeah, I'll be 87 in a couple of months.
87. Unbelievable.
Yeah, one day you're a kid and suddenly you're an old man. I don't know how that happens. I came to this very recently, and that is by doing Taiji. You're looking inward and asking yourself, what am I doing this? Am I doing that? I'm feeling what's happening. It's teaching you to be honest with yourself. And that is the beginning of being honest with other people and being and progressing. You have to be honest. Know what you know what you don't know.
So let's talk about if you can tell us what is Song, Dong, and I think Dong is the other.
Dong Dong, yeah.
Dong Dong, right. Song, Dong, and Dong, right.
Well, Song, the character is a pine tree with the branches hanging from the trunk. And above it is hair, which has no strength at all.
Yes.
It basically means relax. It basically means let everything go. But people will say, well, no, it really also means other things. But I don't think it does. And Yang Cheng Fu didn't say, he said Song a lot. He used that word a lot, and so did Cheng Man Ching. It was translated as relax. It was almost the answer to every question. But Yang Cheng Fu didn't just say Song. He said Song Kai, which Kai is open. It's two swinging doors with two hands opening a lock underneath. So there's the Song is the yin, which is a precursor to yin always comes first. It's a precursor. There has to be a yang aspect to it, a complement to it. And the yang complement is the Nei Jin. And because a lot of people don't understand Nei Jin, because it's very hard to explain and recognize and cultivate is the word, they will put it into Song. But Song to me is just letting everything go. You have to let go of contractive strength, because contractive strength tremendously masks expansive strength. Because if I lift, let's say, this glass of water, maybe that weighs, let's say it's a pound. I'll just say that. When I lift something that's a pound, my biceps is exerting a force on this bone, the forearm bone, of 15 times that amount. So there are tremendous forces that build up in our body for even exerting a relatively small force. So that masks, and of course we've hypnotized ourselves not to even notice that. So that masks the Nei Jin. So you have to let all the contractive strength go first. Then you develop the Nei Jin. That's the precursor that's necessary, but it's not sufficient. And people think it is. They say everything comes from just letting it, sinking your weight, going into the ground. It's not. It's not enough. It's the beginning. It's just the beginning. And right, that's what Cheng Man Ching was trying to teach us, because here we most of us were I was muscle bound from doing, trying to build up my strength. And, I used to be able to do a one-handed pull-up with either hand. I was very strong. I was muscle bound, stiff as a board. And we had to let all that go. Other guys had done hard styles and all kinds of weightlifting. All these people, that was a big thing at that time in the late 60s, early 70s. So that was what he was working on. And to me, that was very important. It was great for me. It was wonderful for me.
So like in physics, one of the laws is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Yes. So you can't just be one thing. You can't just have song, right?
Well,
you have to have the contractive strength with the expansive strength, or balancing it somehow.
The sung is yin.
Right.
We need a yang aspect, which is expansion. Mm-hmm. And so you let everything go down, but there has to be an up.
Right.
And if there isn't, and Cheng Man Ching wrote about this, see, a lot of his writings had much more in them if you can understand them. They're very hard to understand, yeah. But they have a lot more in them than anything he taught at the school. In America, if you let everything sink down, you are very grounded. But if somebody pushes you, it all changes. If you have the expansion, because now if you use contractive strength to try to do something, you have to exert force. If you exert force, let's say somebody's trying to push you and you don't want to be pushed. Now you have to exert contractive force if that's all you have. Contractive force is pulling. So if it's pulling on one end, it has to pull on the other end and pulls you out of your root. But if you're using expansive strength, you're expanding. If they're expanding out, you're expanding down, and that roots you even more. And actually, Cheng Man Ching wrote about that. He talked about rooting, and that you need the expand. But he called it another word, tenaciousness, tenacity, which doesn't really tell you what's going on physiologically.
Right.
Now, dong, I didn't even know those words until very recently. And most people have never even heard that. It's only in one book that I have this. I happen to have it here because I was looking at it. Yeah. It's in this book, mm-hmm. And it's even in the introduction. The Mark Hennessy, I think it is, who translated it. Douglas Wilde says that that's not in the classics. It's not written about. It's not talked about. But I didn't even know that. I sort of came to it from watching my teachers, Harvey I and Sam Chen, who were basically Chen stylists. And Sam Chen had his own style, which was really Chen style, Bagua, and Xing Yi, all combined. Mm. And Harvey Sober wasn't teaching Chen style, at least at the time. He was teaching Yang style. But I would watch him move in demonstrations or in on the side when we would be doing the form. He would be doing his own movements. And I watched how he moved, and I started to move that way. And then I started to realize there's something going on there. But I didn't know really how to explain it or think about it. But then I realized this is a topic in physics. Mm. It's a very basic topic in physics, very old. I mean, probably at least 100 years old, studying how things go back and forth, but with an applied force, and how to time the applied force to maximize the transfer of energy, which is what we're doing in Taiji. And so I worked a lot of that out. I created physics problems that would simulate the movement of arms and moved by the body. And I realized what the timing had to be, and then started to look for it in the form, try to get it in every move.
Mm.
And now it's part of how I move. But I look at videos I did 30 years ago or more, and I had that then,
Mm.
but I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And I see that in a lot of people who are high level in Taiji, higher than I am, way beyond me. And they have it, but then they don't, because they haven't articulated it. They
Right.
haven't gotten it to the point where they can explain it even to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They can do it, but it's not. They don't own it totally.
Right.
They own
I
it,
think
but not totally.
totally, but not totally. Well, it's like if you don't know that it's something that's there, you can't intentionally, like you did, put it in each
Recreate it,
movement.
yes.
So it's
Or
there,
teach
and then
it.
it's
Or
out
teach it.
before moves. And
So it's interesting how my students have gotten it. They have it now.
mm-hmm.
The ones who've been with me a while. The ones that are new, it's so hard for them to feel it. Even if they can feel it with an inanimate object. I give them a stick with a pivot, and they can right away they can do it. But they can't do it with their own bodies because of the baggage that they have. Their habitual ways of moving are so instated in their bodies that they're very, very hard to get beyond.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's an integral part of Taiji. Can I show you what?
I would love. I was
what?
going to ask you
Yeah.
if you'd like to get up and explain it, because it's too conceptual right now.
In doing movement, a lot of people are moving one to one. So, for example, cloud hands, they're doing this one to one. So when the hands reach the end and start coming back, the body has reached the end of its turning and starts to turn the other way.
Yeah.
This is the way that I'm doing it without the stepping.
Right.
But what I do is when the hands are halfway, I start to turn the other way. And that makes...
Oh, I see it.
That makes the, what do you call it? The transfer of energy so much greater that I hardly have to use anything to make my arms move. And of course, that's the precursor to the fajin, the striking.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to go, but that has to be internalized. But so in the form, my idea is you're doing it on a very large scale with the whole body, and then over a period of time you achieve the ability to internalize it so it percolates through the body and comes out through the hand instead of doing it the way we do it in the form. But if you don't do it in the form, I don't see how it would be easy to get the fajin. Not that I feel that that's so important, but it is part of the culture of Taiji.
It's like a whip. One
It
part's
is,
moving
yes.
and pulling the rest.
Yes, and
Yeah.
the move single whip actually is I think that's the name of the move because it has the
Right.
the hook. You know, somebody is coming with a punch, and this, you know, brings it all, steers it away, and then there's the strike with either the tips of the fingers or the back of the hand or whatever.
So getting that in each move, I can see how it would take a while to do it, but I think you could do it with every move.
Every move has it, and the push is almost the linear version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I watch people doing the push, and this is the way they do it. Even the high-level guys do it. They do this, and they stop. And then they do this, and they stop, instead of having it be, there's the dong, dong.
Right.
So I have to move to propel, but then I let it swing.
Right.
See? Let it move, propel. There's the kinetic, I'm giving it kinetic energy now. Now it has more, and there's an intuitive explanation for it that I put in my book, and I have it in some of my videos on YouTube.
We'll put link in the description for people to find it online.
Yeah.
for
It,
that.
but I didn't know the words dong dang then.
Right.
That was a few years ago. I didn't know the words dong dang, but I knew the concept.
Isn't that crazy how,
Yeah.
50 years, 60 years of 70 years of practicing, and then you pick up a book you've had that came out 20 years ago or more, and there it is right in the beginning, and it's like, wait a minute. But it's exciting though when you come upon these things and you have a new way to examine your art and put something into it and elevate again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to bring up another thing. You had said that someone had said to you that the wrist is the second waist, and I thought that was very interesting. If you could
Yeah.
talk about that.
Well, okay. See,
I'm getting all your secrets today, Robert.
no, great. So, for example, in single whip, we have this move where I won't do the move, but the last part of the move, the arm comes up, turning the hip, and then the last part of the move, as you finish the move, the hand rotates basically 180 degrees. And I should have done it in this direction. And that rotation, we were told that the hip and the waist and the wrist go together. Instead of doing this and then separate things. So I'll use this. Somebody is coming in to punch, and first I get off the line always. This would be their hand. And if I just touch this way and turn, it goes this far.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the turning of the waist. But if I turn my wrist at the same time, look at how much further it goes. So I get not only the turning of the hips, but the turning of the wrist. And that then positions my hand so I have more control. So that's why it always starts with the back of the hand and then this. Cloud hands, same thing. A lot of the moves have that, if not all. There's always that rotation of the wrist to deflect. It's like a roller. Like they used to see this, now you don't anymore, but they would have this ladder with these rollers on it, and they
Boxes.
going into from the truck to the supermarket, and they shoot the packages in, and the packages would roll on. That's the way the person who's attacking you is supposed to feel. They come in and suddenly they're rolled off without it, trying to thwart their movement, but utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not done in a precise way, with the right kind of exact intermotion between the turning of the hips and the turning of the arm, the opponent will know exactly what's going on and stop.
Mm-hmm.
The other way, it doesn't reveal what's happening, and the opponent will overextend, making them vulnerable. So that to me is a very important thing, and the only way you can get that is not with your analytical mind and say, oh, this has to turn this much. It has to be the whole body, everything in the body connected to the tips of the fingers and the feet and the head, everything connected. For once it is, then that will happen very easily. And that's the Nei Jin.
Mm-hmm.
Nei Jin is the main
It's really
component.
the secret of everything.
It really is a very important component. So the Dong Dong, the Nei Jin, all these things add up. It's one lifetime isn't enough to learn all this stuff. It's too many thousands of years of knowledge that go into this.
Right. Now, a lot of Chinese martial arts, we tuck the tailbone.
Yeah.
Jianzhuang, Wing Chun, Ngocho, Tai Chi. Yet our spine is naturally an S curve.
Yeah.
And even in Pilates, they took out the tailbone, they tucked the tailbone, and now the gentleman who founded Pilates, everybody says, no, you got to have a neutral pelvis so the tailbone has its natural bend now. In physics, is there a reason because of solidity of or the power of the roots, or how do you see that?
This is great. I love this question. I don't like the idea of tucking the tailbone.
Okay.
Because it implies that you're doing something, forcing something into a position
Right.
that it may not be natural, and I don't think is.
Right.
So the answer to it is the Nei Jin again in the spine. They talk about extending the head upward or imagining it being pulled upward, which is you can never do that. You can never pull it upward unless you had a thing to do that with. So once you expand the spine, you're increasing the space, or at least the pressure, decreasing the pressure between each vertebra and the next, and opening up the spine. That expansion is necessary. And the spine is the weakest part of the body because there's so many joints that you can't really get the strength from the legs up through the spine to the arms without. And you have to. There's no martial art that doesn't have strength.
Right.
Taiji, they talk about strength all the time, but it has to be the right strength. Mm-hmm. So that expansion of the spine, if you expand upward, there's also the downward. You can't have the up without the down. And when you expand the tailbone down, it's automatic by just expanding the whole spine. So I do the exercises with my students where we do that, and I found that has been extremely beneficial for me to do that. And the problem is a lot of people have this sway in their spine, this lower spine, so they have them tilt the pelvis forward, and they think that that's tilting the tailbone forward, but the tailbone is part of the spine. The pelvis is a different bone, or two bones, mm-hmm. and that are connected through the iliosacral joints. So you want to expand the tailbone down, but you also, which sort of straightens, not fully, but more so straightens the spine, but also find the natural neutral position of the pelvis, so it floats, mm-hmm. and then everything is as open as it can be. So that's my way of looking at it. Start with the anatomy. Anatomy is very important. If you don't understand anatomy, you're going to be led astray.
Right.
So the tools are so important that you're using. Again, Henry Ford said, every tool you try to get along without, you end up paying for. You end up paying for in the end, and you still don't have the tool.
Right.
But it's true. So tools are anatomy, physiology, physics for me, math, on spatial relations, things like that, being able to explain things geometrically. All these things are very valuable tools. And so I studied something called, what was it called? Ideokinesis, with somebody by the name of Andre Bernard, who is he's also a Taiji student. And it was being able to visualize the whole body, all the bones in the body as you move. And I'm able to do that. It's like seeing an X-ray video of myself as I do any movement.
So that's what you meant in the thing I read of yours the other night that said that you can see inside your students' bodies, basically.
Oh, that too. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's from looking inward a lot. Well, yes, but it's also from Zoom.
Uh-huh.
Being able to focus on a student without their even knowing that you are. Mm-hmm. Whereas in class, they'll feel that right away. They'll know it right away. And that changes everything. But being able to focus at a distance without being able to touch them, to be able to know things about them that you can now correct.
Mm.
Like, for example, they'll do a movement, and I'll know they're thinking about what's coming next. So, and you see that. Can I show you that?
Yes, please.
After the beginning move in the Taiji form, this is what people will do. Well, they're in the future. That hand, they know has to go there, so they're making it go there. That hand, if the shoulder were really loose, wouldn't do that. This is what it would do. As you shift this way, as you turn this way,
Yeah.
the hand would actually go back, and as you shift, it would stay back. It would be because of its inertia, and then it would swing when you stop. So this would be the move. It wouldn't be this, which breaks the move, and then they become captured by that ball, and then they do that. Instead, it should be this, or something more along those lines. So you can see those things, and you see how people are moving, and you sort of almost know what's in their minds, and but also I got a lot of that from studying ninjitsu, which was really to get inside the other person's mind and feel what they're doing before they do it. You know, in the classics they say, if the opponent doesn't move, I don't move, but if he moves, I move first. That is that kind of thing, that you are picking up what they're planning to do, even if they're not even consciously aware that they're going to do something. And you're tremendously forearmed, and you're picking up their energy, their negative energy, that they're going to do something. So that the training of that was very valuable for just the feeling, you know, what from the body language, but there's another dimension to it beyond that you pick up.
I would say the subplot of what we've been talking about on this podcast is that the connection between human beings, right? There's the mind science, or the mind connection, the telepathy, the seeing through, the energy waves passing between someone's negative energy or happy energy you can feel, and all of this is just part of this whole process, the whole study.
And it's the evolution, or should be, of what we are as sentient beings.
Mm-hmm.
Because we started physically as one-celled, if you trace it back, as one-celled organisms, and then multi-celled organisms that were functioning harmoniously together. And why are we not doing it with other people? Other sentient beings, we should be empathizing with them. We should be feeling what they're feeling, and not be fighting with them the way we do. Not only individually, but worldwide. And that's missing, and that's a big, big problem. So Taiji, I feel, is a way of achieving that if it's done according to the principles. And so people say, oh, well, martial arts are, fighting with, and people get upset when you show a self-defense application. But no, it's you can look at it the other way, that you're understanding things in a way that you never would if you hadn't studied that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you want to hurt another person. It's, people associate it with emotions, with anger, with hatred. No, that's not. It shouldn't be that's not in the training. It's analytical. It's learning about your body, learning how to deal with another person. Mm-hmm. So I always saw it that way.
Yeah.
And stayed away from classes where you were pitting yourself competitively against another person, and wanted to study things where you were learning cooperatively.
Right. Right. So I've got two more things I'd like to ask. Um, if I can hold your attention for a little longer. I got actually about 20 more, but we'll do another one. It's just all just so fascinating.
Great questions. Great questions. You're
Thank
amazing.
you.
You're amazing.
I'm asking all the questions I want to that I would want to know, right? Instead of and you're I just can't drive up to your place today and have coffee. So but one day. Um, I know in meditation, in Qigong, in Taiji, there's a correct internal state that you need to achieve to truly be existing within that practice, whichever of those practices. Uh, what is that correct internal state for Taiji, and how can we cultivate it?
Well, the state that I cherish when I do Taiji, not always, because a lot of times I'm doing it analytically and trying to clarify things, learn how to teach it better or explain it better. But when I'm really into it, I'm connecting with everything in my body, and as I move, it's just the way it's similar to the state that I'm in when I'm in the country, and there's no music, there are no odors of people cooking things or smoking things or whatever. There's no noise, just nature. And you look at the clouds and you see the trees and the wind and the insects and all these things are you're just connected to all of that. That's the way I feel when I'm doing Taiji without any of that. And that's, I think, what Lao Tzu meant by you can know all the secrets of the universe without opening your door, without looking out of your window. And I don't think he was thinking of Google.
Right.
He meant you are a microcosm of nature. You don't need the other stuff. You can experience it in your own body. And that's why I don't have one of these things where, I don't even know what they do. I have one that I just turn it on in an emergency. That's it.
Right. Right. Oh my goodness.
And I'm very, I've been using computers since the 1960s, mainframe, etc.
Right.
So I love computers, and it's a love-hate relationship. But I refuse to have one of these things. It's totally addictive.
Oh, completely. We've got 4 kids, and they just are glued to it. And only one of them still reads because they're watching all of their information or listening. They're not reading it. And and I think there's something very bad about, which is why we have a lot of ADD, a lot of insomnia. A backlit screen shining on your face versus light reflecting off of a page is different, and the kind of by electric energy or electro fields that are just bombarding us is insane. It's got to be wreaking havoc on our cellular system, and so forth, which is why I think meditation is just so important to do, to kind of just bring us back inside and be quiet.
But in order to achieve that state in Taiji, which I feel I do, I'm not. I know I'm not on the level that some people are, or what could be, but I feel I am achieving some of that. You have to be doing the moves according to the principles. Non-action, non-intention, non-attachment, circularity, continuity, being in the moment. All of these things have to be there. And the Dong Dong has to be there. And the Nei Jin. Otherwise, you can't get that. You can't get it.
Well, that was a nice encapsulation of my next question, which was what makes a good Taiji practitioner? It's someone who encompasses and practices with all of those things. Would you like to expand on that idea of what makes a good? Do you have to study and read the classics? Do you need to train with multiple people, or can you get it off without leaving your home? Get the wisdom of the Taiji
You need a
universe.
teacher.
You need a
I
teacher.
think you need multiple teachers.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't need to read any more books. I read one book.
Yeah.
Or I know what fruit is. I ate an apple. Why do I have to do that again? Why do I have to try other fruit?
Right.
There's nothing like that. And there are so many ways of doing things. Look at how many ways there are to prepare eggs.
Right.
You look it up. I did this the other day. 15 ways to prepare eggs. And that's not even all of them. So the thing about it is you need teachers. You have to have teachers. Books, tremendous value. Videos, this is amazing what you can get from some of these videos. Even if you can't learn it, because a lot of them are not teaching it, they're just showing it. But at least you know it's there, and that you know where you may be able to go eventually, if you live long enough.
And like babies, we're absorbing it by watching it too.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they're not. That's the problem.
Right.
I looked at how many people, YouTube gives me the age groups. It was only 65 plus. No women. No women. But now it's more and more women and more lower age groups. So I want to get down to earlier in years so that they can get it as early on as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to give out as much as I know. I surely don't know what a lot of other people do. But the things that I know and I can explain, I'm trying to get out.
And how have you transformed through Taiji over the years, or how has your martial art practice transformed because of your education or research?
Starting Taiji was the best thing that I ever did, and it led to so many other things. I was when I was teaching at NYU or doing I think by then I was just teaching there. I would go into find a room in the student center, and an empty room, and go in there and practice my movements. And this guy came in and he said, "What are you doing?" And I tried to explain it to him. And he said, after a little while, he said, "Do you do meditation?" And I said, "No." He said, "You have to do meditation. If you don't, how can you be good at anything if you don't do meditation?" So right after that, NYU is like 2 blocks from Wise's bookstore, which had all these books. And I went in and I bought a bunch of books on meditation. And I started reading them. And I have to find a teacher. And finally, I went to all these different things, Street Chinmoy and other groups. And finally I found a teacher who was amazing. She had this chi, you'd feel it right across the room right away. Powerful as could be. It was almost the first time it was scary. It was so intense. And I studied with her for about, 5 years formally, and then after that we were in contact. And it was basically spiritual teachings and healing and meditation. And it led to my studying all these other things that I've studied. And the ninjitsu was, a lot of it was understanding how your mind works, understanding when you go into the past, when you go into the future, when you're in the moment, timing, understanding when another person if you need to strike, you don't just do it when you want to do it. You have to know that the other person just at that moment lost their attentiveness. And to read that, to be able to read that, to know when they're going to punch because their mind is telling you something. They're spewing out this, what we call saki, negative chi. Ki is chi. And you can feel that. And they start to come at you and they say to themselves, "I'm going to get this guy." And you feel that. And then at a certain point they say, "I got him," because they're close enough. Now they're in the future because they don't have you yet, but they think they do. That's when you move. But you have to feel that, know that. You have to know yourself. So all of these things, a lot of my understanding of Taiji came from studying Ninjitsu. And I had a wonderful teacher. I'm still in contact with him. Too bad I started it so late in life when my body wasn't able to do all the things that were part of that art. But mentally, the mental part of it, I feel I really got.
Wow. Robert, you're an amazing person.
Takes one to know one.
What we call a mensch.
Thank
And
you.
I've so enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for spending this time.
Thank you so much too.
And promise me you're going to come back in a couple of months and we can dig into some more topics.
Absolutely.
I'd love it. Thank you.